Welcome back to this course on the Custom Cabinet Planner. In this course we will continue looking at the various sections of the Procedures page, starting with the Double Check Field Measure Procedure section. Keep in mind that this app should serve as a second brain, a place to keep all the stuff that your brain simply cannot hold. Let's begin. Coming to our Double Check Field Measure section, we only have one subsection in here, and that is Double Check Field Measurements. And we'll open up our setup, and our little tip is measure twice, cut once. And then the supplies you need includes the drawings in that section as well, so that we have access to the drawings, because when we're double checking we want to do that. So we would open those drawings, and in my case I would open those using Notability. Notability is simply an app that allows you to open a PDF and then just make notes on that PDF. So it's really a good way to confirm that the dimension is either right or wrong, but it also allows you to make other notes if you need to as well. And then there's a 232 tape measure that we would need, a laser measuring device, a 6 foot or longer level so we can find if the floor is level or not and find the high spot on that floor. And then digital angle finder, protractor. You can either do the 3-4-5 method or take one of these. I use a Bosch digital protractor to make sure that the corners are truly 90-degree corners, or if there are angles, what the angle is, so that I can enter those into KCD, or I can make accommodations if the corners are badly out of square. And then a tripod to hold our laptop, and there's a link to one of those that we think is pretty cool. And then large Sharpies to make notes on the floors. Also construction pencils work well for that as well. There's not really anything in this process section that is unique to this other than the list of things that we think you should measure, and you certainly can add to this or take away from it, but we want to make sure that we have clear instructions for those that are field measuring jobs of what it is we expect for them to field measure. Some people think that just field measuring the wall and nothing else is sufficient. I personally prefer to have more detail and context than that. And down in this maintenance section, this is once we've done the double checks, we want to take those notations that we put into Notability and bring those in. And I will open one of these just so you can see how that works. So when we open in any field that has links, we get all of the different pages that were linked, and you see these happen to be numbered, so I'll go ahead and open 2. And this is our field dimensions from the Measures app, and then we've taken those, and in this case I just went ahead and said everything was fine, but otherwise we would make some notations about what is wrong. So we're just basically circling in green saying that this 928 millimeters is correct, that this 2100 millimeters is correct, that this 700 millimeters is correct. Just going through each page, confirming that the dimension is right, or if there's something that needs to be adjusted, we would circle that in red instead of green, and then we might make the note in black if it's on a white background, or white on a red or black background, just something that would show up, and you can change the colors within the app. And then we would come down here as usual and say, okay, change the room status to proposal. So we would do that. So it's that double check field measurement, and we will change it to proposal. And then we would change the assignee if necessary. Again, I would be the person doing this if it were my company. Several of these procedures would be the same person, and you just keep the same assignee until it needs to change. But the change is the activation saying someone else needs to start working on this job. And you would check these off as you go. So now let's jump down into the proposal section. And because we've covered estimate, there's not a ton to cover here, but we do want to mention that we have the video tutorials here as well. So if someone was getting ready to double check a proposal for their first time, they might want to review these video tutorials, and you could have your own video tutorials as well. Then we'll jump down into the setup section and just talk about this job specific detail stuff here one more time. This is only relevant to the first room, so typically this is not relevant to proposal at all unless something has changed. So the wording here has changed to double check that these things are right. Not that we are doing them, but that we are double checking that they are right. So this is kind of our measure twice, cut once thing in another form, that we're talking about a proposal. We want to make sure we've done it right, so we want to double check these things. We'll just skip the processes for this one because in this particular case there's nothing unique to that. It's identical to what we did for proposal, except the wording changes to say check it rather than do it. So we'll jump down into this maintenance part because there is some things to be done here. We have this section called Prepare Proposal. And this section just literally step by step tells someone new or someone who hasn't done it recently how to go about preparing a proposal. We like to take the KCD drawings and blend those with the proposal out of Custom Cabinet Estimator. So this is telling someone how to do that, exactly step by step how to do that. and then once that's created, giving you the place to upload it. And we're going to look at how to do that here in just a second. In this section, we're just not going to do it in this particular field. We're going to do it in one of these fields below this. But literally, you're going to take what you created following these directions and upload those here. So that gets us down here to this section here where we would come in and change the room status. And at this point, we would come in and change the room status to engineer because we've delivered the proposal to the client. So we're ready to engineer. Now, we're not actually going to do that yet because we need one more step here, and we have this step listed here that we need to get back a signed copy. So I wanted to show you how easy it is to bring in a signed copy. First way of doing it is just click on the field, say choose a file that you've saved somewhere. I happen to have saved it onto my desktop, but I moved it to a secondary desktop, so it may, yep, there it is right there. So I would just click on that and say open, and it would put it in there. That's one way of doing it. I'm not going to do it that way. Another is I'm going to just minimize this window. I threw it right here on this desktop, and I'm just going to take it and drag it. So once that field is blue, that means it will drop there. And then if we click on this, we can see this is just happens to be a picture of the final page of the proposal with the customer signature on it. It was how one of the projects was done that Kingdom Custom Cabinetry did, so it was one I grabbed. Typically we do put the whole proposal in there that happens to have the signature on it, but it's fine to just have that last page. This is what we would need if we needed to go to court about something. And then once we've gotten that, we're ready to change this win-loss status from pending to won. Now, that is the distinction between pending and won, is that we have a signed proposal, that we have won the project, that we are going to be doing this project. I've also brought over, just to kind of show you how this works out, so I've jumped over into a user of Custom Cabinet Planner, and we're actually looking at the projects page for that user, and then we're looking at his archives table. I just thought this would be a good place to kind of see how all this actually plays out, what the end result of doing this process is. So in his archive table, we could also have multiple views if we wanted to actually say, I just want to see the archive table for 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, that kind of thing. But right now we just have all of the projects that he's done since 2020 because that's when he started. So all of these projects that have the win-loss set to pending that are in the archive table are projects that are on hold. They've come to us, they've asked for a ballpark estimate to see if we fit within their price structure, but they're in the design stages. They're drawing blueprints or something like that. They're not ready for us at this point. So we're just keeping these kind of invisible to this active table, not having to look at these every day. So all of these up at the top that have pending in the win-loss, but archived over here are projects that are on hold. There's some sort of long period between the time they reached out to us and the time we could actually do something. Just gets them out of sight and out of mind until we're ready to do something with them. These are all the projects that were won for this period of time, somewhere between 2020 and 2023. And so all of these are complete. But some of the value of this comes that when we scroll down here and get past this, we can kind of look at what was lost versus what was unqualified. So this was the end of one, and so we're at the beginning of loss. So these are all the jobs he's lost since 2020, which means that they said the ballpark looked good, that that range was good, that they could afford it, but still after we got to the either proposal or design or estimate somewhere along this path, they declined and said, we're not going to buy cabinets from you. So that's a genuine loss. Those projects, we could have gotten them. They felt like they could afford the cabinetry, but for one reason or another, we lost them. So this is a combination of all the projects that were lost to this particular cabinet maker. And then these were the projects that I think should be distinguished between. These are unqualified. These are people that could not afford the cabinetry. So they're unqualified. We went through the process, we delivered the ballpark estimate, and they said, we can't afford your cabinetry. And so they became unqualified. So these are all the projects, one in 2020, several in 2021, and multiples in 2022, that people that simply couldn't afford his cabinetry. And these are people that he could have spent hours with had he done the typical going through the whole drawing the jobs and all of those things for them to not even be able to afford the cabinetry. So we've spent the least amount of time possible with these people. We spent the least amount possible here. We still had to get past that ballpark estimate for these people that still declined to purchase the cabinetry. And there were several of those, but there's a lot more ones than there are of either of those, and we have the quantities. We can actually come down and look and say that there were 31 projects that he won, there were 8 that were lost, and you can see this number's floating down through here as I'm going, and there were 6 that were declined. So 6 were declined, 8 were lost, and 31 projects won. And then we have some projects up here in this pending category. We've got 8 projects right now that are just kind of hidden right now because there's some lag between the time they reached out to us and the time we can actually do something. All right, let's jump back to our page here. So we've changed our win-loss status here to 1, and now let's go ahead and jump down into this engineering procedures real quick. There's not a ton to cover here. So we've got another one of those tips, but basically it's just saying here is where we want to focus. Really zone in. Most of the mistakes that are expensive, that take a job from profitable to unprofitable, happen right here in this engineering procedure. So let's jump into this. We have 2 scenarios: KCD outsourcing carcass parts, KCD CNC insourcing carcass parts. So some people outsource completely. That's a new model that's not been around that long. And some people insource everything. They make everything in-house, although really no one does, but some people think they do anyway. But they do make a lot of the things themselves in-house. No one makes hinges and drawer guides. But we have these 2 scenarios, and some people do both. So my business model was called strategic outsourcing, outsourced when I sold more than I could produce. And so I would use both of these. Some jobs would be outsourced carcass parts, and some jobs would have insourced carcass parts that we would make them in-house. So in this first section, we've got another reminder to check those options, those KCD options. Again, they're hidden, so we want to check them. And in the process portion of this, there's one of these cool calculators here. So this is specific to the X series pull-out, and this is linked to the instructions. This is a calculator. So if I'm looking at my drawings and it says the opening width where I want to put these pull-outs is 610 millimeters, and then I'm going to use the pilaster that happens to be 64 millimeters wide. But you see that I have some notes here that say X series pilasters are available in both 1 1/4, 32 millimeter, and 2.5, 64 millimeter. And so here I'm saying that I want the pilaster width times 2. So in this case, I'm using the 32 millimeter pilasters, but there's 2 of them, one on either side. But whatever the clearance needs to be for the pilasters, put that in here, and then your drawer guide clearance. So in the undermount drawer guides, almost all of them are 10 millimeters clearance required, 5 millimeters on each side. And then the bracket clearance. For the X series, there's a little bracket, a really cool little bracket. It requires 3 millimeters on each side, so 6 millimeters. And then the pull-out width itself is calculated for you. So for a 610 opening, I need to order a pull-out width of 530 millimeters, and the interior depth of my cabinet is 588 millimeters, and so I need to order a pull-out depth of 533.4 or 21 inches. So this calculator calculates the size of the pullouts that you need to order to work with your pilaster system. Then we have another peek into the appliances. We won't spend any time there because we've talked about all of that, but this is specific to the engineering. We want to make sure that these openings are right. So we're going to go to each one of the cabinets that has an appliance and check that these openings are correct. That we have the opening width, the opening height, and the opening depth, and we want to confirm that it is correct for the refrigerator, the range, the microwave drawer, the beverage chiller, and the dishwasher. The mistake here gets very, very expensive. And then let's just real quick, again, the setup is basically the same, nothing here unique, but when we get to the process, this is the first time that we use images extensively. Now, obviously we have a portal into the drawings, because if we're doing this, we're going to need to be looking at the drawings, whether we look at them on screen or we open them up and print them out, look at them on a piece of paper, however we want to do that, but we have a portal into those drawings so that we can get them here at the point of use, context sensitive. But in addition to all of our bullet points and check boxes and numbered lists, we have lots of screen captures. I'm going to just give a plug for GreenShot. That is as good a screen capture program as I've seen. A lot of people just use the snipping tool that's on your computer, and it works well too. But we want to be able to get these screenshots. Some of these may have some notes on them. We'll see. We'll scroll down through here. But you can see a lot of screenshots of the different software we're using, whether it's KCD or Report Center or CAD Code. We have screenshots here. Then when we jump down to the maintenance section, again, we finished up this engineering portion. So it's saying here, now change this to material acquisition, and then we would pick whoever is going to be doing that from our users. And again, I'm just going to let it be myself just for the sake of representing what we're doing. That covers everything I wanted to touch on in this 4th course on the procedures page. Up next, we will continue working down our sequence of events list, looking at more sections of the procedures page. Thanks for watching.